I never saw it coming. My wife, Keela, sat me down one evening, saying she wanted to talk. Those words usually mean trouble, but I couldn't imagine what she'd drop on me. She confessed she wasn't happy being monogamous anymore. She wanted an open marriage. I remember the way her words hit me like a punch to the gut. At first I thought I misheard her. Surely she wasn't serious. But the way she kept talking, calm and measured, made it clear this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment idea. She had thought this through probably for months. Keela spoke about needing freedom and fulfillment, using phrases like growing apart and rediscovering ourselves. What stood out most wasn't just the words, but her tone. She wasn't pleading or apologetic. She was confident, almost detached, as if she'd already justified everything in her head. It didn't feel like a conversation about saving our marriage. It felt like a negotiation she had already won. I was stunned. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. How did we get here? We weren't perfect, sure, but I never thought things were bad enough for her to suggest something so drastic. We had been together for years, building a life, making memories. Was all of that so meaningless to her? As Keela kept talking, I started to notice something else. She wasn't just suggesting an open marriage, she was subtly laying the groundwork to frame it as the only way forward. She talked about how monogamy felt restrictive for her, how she needed to explore to feel alive again. It was all about what she wanted, and she wasn't asking me for permission, she was informing me of her decision. That's when the real betrayal sank in. This wasn't about us, it wasn't about fixing anything or reconnecting, it was about her and someone else. The realization hit like a cold wave washing over me. Keela wasn't trying to build a stronger relationship, she was looking for an escape route while keeping me tethered. I sat there outwardly calm, but my thoughts were a storm. 100 questions and emotions swirled in my head. Was she already seeing someone? Was this just her way of legitimizing an affair? Did she think so little of me, of us, to treat our marriage like a disposable arrangement? Despite the chaos in my mind, I stayed silent, letting her speak. I watched her closely, trying to piece together the truth. Her excitement was palpable. She didn't seem nervous or worried about how I'd react. If anything, she looked relieved, maybe even hopeful. That's when it hit me, she thought I'd agree. She thought I'd just go along with this because, to her, it made sense. The betrayal cut deep, but I knew anger wouldn't solve anything. If I lashed out, she'd just use it to justify her choices further. Instead, I stayed calm, masking my hurt and confusion. If this was the game she wanted to play, I'd play along. But not out of love. Not out of compromise. I'd play for the sake of strategy. That moment, I made a silent decision. If she thought I'd let her rewrite the rules of our marriage without consequence, she was mistaken. Keela might think she was in control, but I wasn't going to let her win. I told her I'd agree under one condition. We'd both get to explore, no secrets, no judgments. She hesitated, but agreed, thinking I was simply trying to meet her halfway. The truth, I wasn't. When I made that condition, it wasn't about compromise. It was about creating a framework where I could regain control. Keela had approached this open marriage idea with a sense of certainty, as if she'd already planned how everything would unfold. But what she didn't anticipate was that I'd take her at her word and use her own terms to my advantage. I kept my condition simple: transparency. Whatever we did, we had to share the details, not to shame or embarrass each other, but to keep things open just like she claimed to want. I framed it as an effort to maintain trust, ironic, considering trust was the very thing she had shattered with this proposition. Keela agreed, albeit reluctantly. I could see she was unsure about sharing those kinds of details with me, but she didn't push back too hard. She was too focused on the freedom this arrangement would supposedly bring her. In her mind, I was probably just trying to make the best of a difficult situation. A man who didn't want to lose his wife and was willing to adapt. Little did she know, I wasn't adapting, I was preparing. As the days went on, I buried my heartbreak under a facade of calm acceptance. Outwardly, I was cooperative, even supportive. I reassured her I wasn't upset, that I understood her need for growth and exploration. Inside, though, I was a mix of emotions. There was anger, yes, but more than that, there was a cold determination. Keela had opened the door to something she didn't fully understand, and I intended to make her see what that decision truly meant. What I found most ironic was how easily she bought into the idea that I was on board. For someone who claimed to want honesty and openness, she seemed completely uninterested in how I really felt. She didn't ask if I was okay with this, not beyond the surface level. It was as though in her mind my agreement was proof enough that everything was fine. In reality, I was anything but fine. I spent hours replaying our conversations in my head, trying to make sense of how we'd gotten here. I thought about all the times we had talked about trust, loyalty, and commitment, how those values had seemed unshakable in our relationship. Now, it all felt like a lie. But instead of dwelling on that pain, I channeled it into my plan. Keela wanted freedom? Fine. I would give her the freedom to do as she pleased, but I would also take my own. If this marriage was going to become a game, I'd make sure I played it better. There was something almost empowering about that realization. For the first time since Keela had dropped this bombshell on me, I didn't feel helpless. I felt in control. She thought she was leading the charge, but in reality, she was walking right into the trap I was setting. That's the thing about betrayal, it changes you. It forces you to see people for who they really are, and it gives you the clarity to make decisions you might have avoided otherwise. I wasn't going to let Keela's selfishness destroy me. If anything, it would be the reason I came out stronger. From that moment forward, I wasn't just her husband. I was her equal in this game she had started. Only she didn't realize that I wasn't playing to save our marriage. I was playing to show her what betrayal truly feels like. She wasted no time diving into her new world. Late nights, unexplained absences, and distant behavior became her norm. I knew she was seeing someone, but instead of confronting her, I let her believe she had the upper hand. Keela's transformation was striking. She went from being my wife, someone I thought I knew inside and out, to a stranger overnight. Her phone became her constant companion, always buzzing with notifications she'd dismiss with a sly smile. She dressed differently too, swapping her usual casual style for something bolder, more eye-catching. It was as if she was trying to erase the person she'd been with me and become someone new entirely. I noticed the small changes in how she interacted with me too. There was a distance in her voice, a lack of warmth that used to come so naturally. Conversations became surface level, and the laughter we used to share disappeared. She was present in the house, but absent in every other way. It was like living with a ghost of who she used to be. I didn't ask her where she was going or who she was meeting. I didn't need to. The late-night errands and sudden need for independence told me everything I needed to know. And still I said nothing. I let her think she was winning, that she had outmaneuvered me in this game. What she didn't realize was that I was already setting the stage for my next move. While Keela was busy exploring her new life, I started exploring my own options, not romantically, but strategically. That's when I turned to someone who knew Keela almost as well as I did her best friend, Sia. Sia had always been a constant presence in our lives. She was smart, beautiful, and fiercely independent, but she also had a history with Keela that wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. In one of our conversations, Sia let slip that she had been hurt by Keela in the past, though she didn't go into detail. That nugget of information stuck with me, and now it became the key to my plan. I reached out to Sia under the pretense of needing someone to talk to. She was surprisingly understanding, offering a listening ear as I explained what Keela had proposed and how it was affecting me. It didn't take long for the conversation to shift to Sia's feelings about Keela. That's when the truth came out. Keela had betrayed her once before, years ago, in a way that had left Sia bitter and resentful. The more we talked, the more aligned our goals became. Sia wasn't just willing to help me, she was eager. She saw this as an opportunity to settle an old score, while I saw it as the perfect way to show Keela the consequences of her choices. We didn't need to plot or scheme excessively. Our plan was simple and effective. I didn't need to fall in love with Sia or even pretend to. I just needed her presence to send a message Keela couldn't ignore. Sia understood this and agreed to play her part. For her, it was a chance to confront the pain Keela had caused her. For me, it was a way to reclaim my dignity and shift the balance of power. As Keela continued to invest herself in her new freedom, she remained blissfully unaware of what was happening right under her nose. I didn't feel guilty about what I was doing. After all, I wasn't the one who broke our vows. Keela had rewritten the rules, and now she'd have to live with the consequences. The irony wasn't lost on me. While she was off chasing her version of happiness, I was laying the groundwork for a lesson she'd never forget. In her quest to escape the constraints of monogamy, she had unknowingly set herself up for the ultimate betrayal. And I was more than ready to deliver it. Keela was glowing one evening as she shared how liberating this arrangement was for her. She didn't ask about my side of things, assuming I wasn't taking it as seriously. That's when I dropped my bombshell. I told her about Saya. Her excitement had been palpable, almost infuriating. She talked about her newfound freedom as if it was some sort of enlightenment, the answer to all her discontent. I sat across from her, nodding in the right places, masking the storm of emotions building inside me. How could she be so blind? So self-absorbed? She hadn't once stopped to ask how I was doing, how this open marriage was affecting me. To Keela, this was all about her. And yet, I waited. I let her continue to talk, savoring every word, knowing that in just a few moments, the narrative she had built for herself would come crashing down. When she finally paused, I leaned back and, with a calmness that surprised even me, said, "I've been seeing someone too." Sia. The silence that followed was deafening. Keela's expression shifted instantly, from shock to disbelief, and then to anger. Her glowing confidence evaporated in an instant. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. For someone who had been so eager to embrace openness and freedom, she was suddenly at a loss. When she finally found her voice, her words were sharp, accusing. "Saya, my best friend," she demanded, as if saying it out loud would somehow make it less real. The betrayal in her tone was almost laughable. Betrayal? From the woman who had introduced this chaos into our marriage? I didn't flinch. I calmly explained how it happened, from the initial conversation to the shared understanding that brought Sia and me together. I left nothing out, giving her every detail not to hurt her, but to make it clear that I had played by her rules. She wanted transparency, and I was giving it to her. Keela's anger boiled over quickly. She accused me of breaking some imaginary code, of deliberately hurting her. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here was a woman who had turned our marriage into a free-for-all, now outraged because I had done exactly what she had asked for. It was almost too rich. But I wasn't done. I explained to her that Saya wasn't just some random person. She was someone who had her own history with Keela, someone who had been hurt by her in the past. Keela's face fell at that, the weight of what I was saying sinking in. She knew exactly what I meant, and the realization seemed to cut deeper than anything else. The fury in her eyes turned to something else: panic, maybe even regret. She tried to argue, to spin the situation in her favor, but there was no coming back from this. The damage was done, and for the first time since this ordeal began, Keela wasn't in control. Watching her unravel was strangely satisfying, though it wasn't about revenge in the petty sense. It was about balance. She had set the terms, and now she was being forced to live with them. For the first time, Keela was seeing what it felt like to be on the receiving end of betrayal, and it was clear she didn't like it. As I sat there watching the walls of her carefully constructed world collapse, I felt a sense of closure. I hadn't sought out this situation, I had been thrust into it. But if Keela thought she could manipulate me into playing the role of the passive, understanding husband while she did as she pleased, she was mistaken. She had written the rules, but I had rewritten the outcome. Our marriage didn't survive, but that was never the goal. Keela's attempt to rewrite the rules of our relationship ended in chaos, and my revenge was complete. In the aftermath of everything, Keela tried to salvage what was left. She made attempts to talk, to negotiate, to explain. But there was nothing left to explain. Her choices had spoken louder than any words ever could. She had wanted freedom, but what she truly craved was power, control over our marriage, over me, and over the narrative of our lives together. And when that control slipped away, she didn't know how to handle it. The days following my revelation about Saya were tense. Keela's anger ebbed and flowed, replaced by moments of desperation and then back to resentment. She accused me of using Saya to hurt her, of crossing a line that shouldn't have been crossed. The hypocrisy of her words didn't even sting anymore. It was just noise, the flailing of someone who realized too late the weight of their own decisions. I didn't argue with her. I didn't need to. I had already made my decision. This marriage, what little was left of it, was over. Keela's betrayal had shattered any foundation we once had, and no amount of apologies or explanations could change that. For too long, I had allowed her choices to dictate my emotions, my actions. Now, for the first time, I was taking back control. Walking away wasn't easy, though. There were moments when the weight of it all hit me, the memories of what we once had, the dreams we had shared, the life we had built together. Letting go of all of that felt like losing a part of myself. But then I would remember the betrayal, the lies, and the way she had tried to justify it all as something healthy, even necessary. Keela tried to paint herself as the victim in those final days. She claimed I had blindsided her, that I had taken things too far. But deep down, she knew the truth. She had created the situation, and she had underestimated me. She had expected me to quietly endure her choices, to play along without ever asserting my own desires or needs. She thought I would fold under the weight of her decisions. She was wrong. The aftermath of my revenge wasn't about feeling triumphant or vindicated. It was about finding closure. Keela's choices had hurt me deeply, but they also revealed the cracks in our relationship that I had been too blind to see before. Her betrayal forced me to confront the reality that we weren't partners anymore. We were just two people living parallel lives, pretending to be a team. As I walked away from our marriage, I found myself reflecting not on the pain she caused, but on the lessons I had learned. Betrayal is a cruel teacher, but it is also an effective one. It showed me the importance of self-respect, of standing up for what I deserve, even in the face of heartbreak. Keela's betrayal didn't destroy me, it freed me. It forced me to reevaluate what I wanted in life and in love. And while her actions left scars, they also gave me the strength to move forward, unburdened by her lies and manipulation. In the end, my revenge wasn't just about exposing her hypocrisy. It was about reclaiming my own sense of worth. Sometimes the best way to deal with a cheater isn't to fight for their love, but to let them unravel under the weight of their own choices. Keela's downfall wasn't something I orchestrated, it was something she created for herself. I just made sure she faced it head on. Walking away from her wasn't just an ending, it was a new beginning. One where I could finally live free from betrayal and lies, ready to rebuild a life on a foundation of trust and self-respect. And for that, I had no regrets.